So, thank you for all joining us here. Do we need to do quick intros? Do we want to do a quick round, or do we want to dive in? Mark,
Very quick round so the people on the phone know, and then
let's
we'll
do that, and the people on the phone, so we all know who's here, and then we've got a very packed couple hours for us. So, I'm Thompson Morrison. I'm acting as the chair of the subcommittee. I'm on the STEM Council. I'm also the executive director of the TAO Foundation.
Herb Fricky with Akana, formerly Cooper's Eats engineers.
And also on the STEM Council.
Yeah, STEM Council.
Jill Hubbard, South Metro Salem STEM Hub.
Charles Smith, Computer Science, Sherwood High School, and one of the leaders of the Oregon Computer Science Teacher Association.
Kristen Harrison, Portland Metro STEM Partnership.
Martin Stockstick, Center for Research on Lifelong STEM Learning, Oregon State University.
Dietrich Steinmetz, Portland Community College, Sylvania Campus.
Jessica Howard, Portland Community College, Southeast Campus. I'm Kyle Ricci-Noel with the Oregon Business Council, and we also have the CTE STEM Employer Coalition.
Joe Oshiro, Oregon Department of Education.
Mark Lewis, I'm with the Office of the Chief Education Officer as Director of STEM.
Thank you. And those on the phone, could you please introduce yourselves?
Sure. Leslie Garcia, Oregon Health and Sciences University.
Erin Malbrough with Girls Incorporated.
I'm Chip Lindsay from ScienceWorks Museum in Ashland, Oregon.
Nice.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everybody for joining us this morning. So we've spent the last couple 3 months kind of hammering out the framework for the plan, including what the vision was, what our fundamental beliefs were that we're guiding ourselves by, what our and also what the goals are of what we're seeking to establish within the plan. We have, in a very quick spin, have to now put the meat onto these bones. That is really kind of understand what are the tactics that we're going to use to actually implement what we've actually set out to do. So what we've done very intentionally is to set out something that is audacious. We're not looking at incremental, we're looking at transformative change here. And that is what we set about to do. That's what the STEM Council set about to do, to say this is a time for audacity. This is a time for us not to merely try to play catch up, but to actually do a leapfrog here in Oregon. So that's the context in which we're operating here. What we need to do very quickly is to say, okay, what are the tactics that we're going to be using that we can actually begin to implement these, knowing full well that we are going to move in a fast-paced, agile, fail-fast model here, to really, which we've already set a stage for doing that, but we need to keep doing that moving forward. So with that in mind, what we've done here is that these are the goals that we have set out. All of us are looking at this with a different lens, and that's why we're all at this table. Because we all come to us within a context of what is possible. And so what's important is that when we start to understand, given a shared vision, how do we see actually addressing that within our lens, and when we begin to actually share those perspectives, that's when the magic begins to happen. That's when we begin to see how these things begin to gel. So we're walking into this place right now where it's going to be a little bit, this is that place of uncertainty where we're going to have to move fast, where we're going to basically come up with a bunch of ideas and be able to in a very fast way begin to understand how do we begin to put those tactics against our goals, but also within the context of how we got here. So what Mark did over here was kind of say, this is where we started from in our current biennium. That biennium that established our STEM Council and established our initial grant that allowed for our setting up of our STEM hubs, doing some innovation grants, and doing some post-secondary talent work. This is kind of where we started from. We have kind of our manifesto of where we want to go. We've got our goals. But also, as we think about this in terms of tactics, we also want to be able to understand that we're really working at a full stack here. That means that there are 3 layers that we're always looking at this. The policy layer, the platform layer, and the practice layer. So when we think about tactics, thinking also about the tactics as they relate to one of these 3 layers. Because the key of our success is aligning all 3 of these layers so that at the end of the day, that we are going to be effective at allowing for a transformative change that really allows us to make a significant difference in how we are preparing the talent for an innovation-based economy that is dependent upon these STEM skill sets and mindsets. So with that in mind, what we did before this meeting to do a little prep is we said, okay, here's our manifesto. We've all gone through it multiple times. We've been editing that for a while. Here are our goals. We need to start thinking, well, how would we potentially actually address each one of these goals? What are the tactics? What are the things that we can start pulling out of our pockets and throwing on the table and say, hey, what if we did this? What if we did that? And what we did is we asked people to think about this before the meeting and identify which one of them most deeply resonates with us. Because each of those are going to resonate at a different level. So we asked folks to actually look at that and share with us which one of those really were the ones that we felt most passionate about. That is going to allow us to then go into a breakout session. Those breakout sessions we're going to go into right away, which is say we're going to go into these 5 groups. See if we can pull a 5. And our job in 30 minutes is to focus on one of these areas and pull everything out of our pockets we've got, including the lint and the keys and everything else. What could we do? And then bring that back to our group after that 30 minutes and say, this is what we began to think. These are the tactics we began to think. Because clearly, our tactics are going to move across the different goals. We're not dealing with silos here. In fact, part of our job is to break all silos apart. But what we need to do is be able to say which of those tactics really are going to be, we see as being very strong and having a resonance, not only across the goals, but also across our stack, our layers, right? And then we can then go back and say, these are the ones, STEM Investment Council, that we feel that are going to be able to move the needle fastest. So with that in mind, we're going to break into 5 groups, A through E.
Do we want to ground ourselves in the outcomes first?
Please. I'm sorry. I'm going well-minded here. Okay, go, Mark. Go.
And I thought I was the one with the hyper-caffeinated this morning.
You don't need caffeine to act like that.
Mark, thank you. Ground us, please.
Okay, just to step back just a little bit. Actually, the things on the whiteboard here, and for those of you on the phone, they've were also put forward in our recommendations for this coming biennium from the STEM Investment Council, not the current biennium. And so what we had done was to look at strategic investments and how would we prioritize the investments in the state. And so we proposed some initial investments, knowing that this process of strategic planning was going to be going forward and there may be modifications, but we wanted to make sure that we had a starting place for some of this. And so on the phone, for those of you who can't see the whiteboard, there were 3 primary areas of investment suggested. One around regional STEM hubs to create an implementation infrastructure and a feedback mechanism for the state. So how do we create, as Thompson said, in terms of the platform necessary for innovation to occur and to share best practice and to actually transform the system as a whole. There's some focuses within the STEM hubs around educator PD, industry partnerships, internships and mentorships, out-of-school providers and connecting them as part of the overall ecosystem, attending to educational leadership in regions, and certainly making economic and workforce connections there. The second area of investment were around innovation grants. And predominantly, the STEM Council had put forward 4 areas for targeting those investments, knowing that equity would be a primary goal of those. The STEM Council said 70% of those investments should be targeting students of color and women in STEM. And there were 4 areas. How to deal with the elephant in the room, mathematics. Okay, improving mathematics understanding, improving the quality of instruction in mathematics, and there were 2 areas associated with that, moving toward more applied mathematics, and not just obsessing about content. There's been some work previously with math in CTE, in career and technical education, that holds a tremendous promise. But this is across K-12 and post-secondary. Part of that is also the developmental math issue predominantly at community colleges, but also at our universities. And then a secondary strategy with the math was to explore pilots for adaptive learning systems and online resources associated with the mathematics, and how can that help complement and support classroom educators and out-of-school educators, I would imagine. The second area for those innovation grants was to increase computational thinking and digital literacy, so attending to robotics and engineering as well as computer science and coding, but within a larger umbrella there, and also that's targeting anywhere from K-12, sort of middle school, high school area predominantly. Increasing access to out-of-school or free choice learning environments, again, particularly for our underrepresented groups, and quality out-of-school programs, not just entertainment, but motivation and rigor associated with that, deeper learning, but attending to the affective domain, and then also focusing on early learning environments. If we're going to close the opportunity gap, which is a euphemism for a number of other things, expectation gaps and so forth, we need to increase the interactive environments in the early learning space. Okay, so that was that middle area of innovation grants. And then the third area was attending to the post-secondary environments, post-secondary talent development. One key strategy that has been moving forward in a fantastic way is the development of the Oregon Talent Council. That's a legislative bill right now to establish that. That's expanding and evolving the former engineering the current Engineering Technology Industry Council, who met this morning. So they're still alive and well, but evolving that to ensure that we're focusing on community colleges and other high demand sectors like the health sciences, energy sector, high-tech manufacturing, precision agriculture, etc.
Yeah. Question, and I'm behind on this. I know the STEM hubs are operating and they're doing all these things. The innovation grants, have they already happened?
We've had some current STEM, STEAM, CTE grants. There was $2 million in this last biennium, or $2.3 million that was put out by the Department of Education, targeting largely connecting to the world of work. And so there's some great work going on there. We want to be much more strategic and mindful of those kinds of grants in the future about how we, one, get the necessary business intelligence to understand, is this going to be effective? How does that connect with larger strategies? And just get a lot more focus around those grants. Yeah.
Can I follow up to that question? Are these implementation grants using what we know about this and applying this to Oregon? Is that the nature of the grants? Or is it trying to find out with new solutions?
Yeah, great question. So two tiers of grants associated with that. If we have programs that are already demonstrating efficacy, effectiveness of shifting the outcomes on some of the critical outcomes that we're trying to get for students being, children, youth, and adults, then we should be spreading and investing in spreading those. I don't say replication because things don't replicate. We can adapt what worked in what situation, and what about it can we then apply to new situations. So there was the sort of scale up portion of those grants, and then there were more of innovation type of grants that say, we think that these approaches show tremendous promise, but we haven't established the evidence behind them necessary to say, let's go whole hog in scaling this across the state. So adaptive learning systems, for example, in mathematics, show great promise. The research out there is mixed for a number of different reasons, partly due to educator preparedness, the environment that they're being used in, et cetera, and the platforms themselves. So two tiers of that, if you would. Okay, back to the secondary, if I can.
Can I just say, if we want to do this work, at some point, program delivery directly to the students has to be paid for.
I'm not sure what you're saying
For
there.
CBOs.
For community-based organizations?
For
That's the question.
CBOs, or the districts have to direct funding that way. Right. Innovation and seed grants are not enough in and of themselves.
Yeah, I think we need to be mindful of the constraints in the system as we propose strategies, and also the assets that we have to build upon. So if we're going to be able to leverage current programming in a way that aligns to the outcomes, that's certainly a place to be, but also understanding that we have huge constraints in terms of educator time and attention to these. We've got a lot of noise in the system from a formal education perspective, and then from our out-of-school educators, or I forget what you guys are using now. Enhanced learning opportunities.
Enhanced learning opportunities.
Expanded learning opportunities.
It's like a quiz, it's an acronym quiz.
ELO, I know, but I don't know what the I always get mixed up.
Electric light orchestra.
That's it. ELO for me is electric light orchestra. But essentially those free choice learning environments, and how do we make sure that those are integrated within the system? So it gets fuzzy because some of those programs are actually done within schools and within school days. So that's the richness. So it can't just be out of school, but that, So yes, and they need funding. Absolutely. And then back to the post-secondary talent development, the one thing that's not currently in the conversations with the Oregon Talent Council, but is in the bill, is attending, that the STEM Investment Council was very clear on, is that we need to provide the support structures in the post-secondary environment to ensure that women and students of color are successful and are retained there. And there's a lot of cultural issues there. There's a lot of support matters associated with that. So sorry, Thompson, that's sort of our starting point on where the proposed kind of strategies. What we're going to try to do is, do these still resonate within this larger 4 or 5 goals that we've put forward, and how does this all then fit together? So we're in a puzzle piece time frame here. Okay.
So does
play
that,
space.
The play space, absolutely. And thanks, Mark. That was really, because the fact is that we are. Oh, I'm sorry. Was there a question?
No, just one note. I think Bradford may be on the phone. The go-to meeting, he wasn't. It says it's not launched by the organizer, which clearly it is, but it looks like you're alone on there, so maybe.
Is there not
there's a broader barrier, but I do think Bradford has joined us on the phone.
Thanks, Bradford.
Seth, can you just see if
let's check.
And if there's a different URL, maybe what we could do is send over to Bradford. Is that good, John?
Yeah, it's the one that's on the
And Bradford, you tried the link in the Outlook meeting?
Yes.
Okay, so
I think he's tried 2. I forwarded the one we just received yesterday.
And that also didn't work.
It didn't work.
All right, technology challenges.
Being real with the online, and when I go to phone, it says the organizer has not started the meeting.
But there is the opportunity that we're on the wrong one here, since we're alone. I mean, no one has successfully.
Invite? No?
Well, this is...
Yeah, I have the same issue as well.
Can you check that the meeting ID that you have is 597 107 869? That the meeting ID on GoToMeeting is 597 107 869.
Okay, so
sorry, that is not the one that's in my version of the Outlook one. I'm going to write that one down because
right. So if you just go to the URL join GoToMeeting, please. If you go to that URL joingotomeeting.com, and it'll ask you for meeting ID. And if you use that number that Mark just gave, which is the 597 107 869, that should get you on board.
I can.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry about that, everybody. We're trying to
email it again.
That's okay. Well, we all
sorry about this. Could I get the meeting number one more time?
Okay. Thanks. Digital literacy, for adults in our system as well.
Okay.
The other thing that I want to draw your attention to before we break up into our groups is that there's been a lot of thought and conversation from our STEM Hub partners that have put forward some systemic outcomes to focus our time and attention on, and you have these in your you should have received those in the emails from Thompson and those people here. There's a colorful sort of a kid one that looks at early learning, elementary, middle, secondary, post-secondary, and workforce that tries to capture some broad systemic outcomes that are critical for us as a system. And any feedback on that is welcome, but not right now. Okay, we don't want the meeting to devolve. So those are all student outcomes on that colorful one. Those are the student outcomes that in the system that we may be wanting to prioritize. So this is an opportunity for us to consider those and make sure that those fit with the goals. There shouldn't be anything too surprising in there from a system as a whole, but some people, have rightfully said, well, how are we, going to do that based on what we individually are doing in our programs? And the answer is that these are outcomes that we want to monitor as a system, and our aggregated efforts should be moving the needle on those sorts of outcomes. And some of them you have direct ties to in your programs, and others are more sort of knock-on effects. So if we believe that STEM increases student engagement and motivation, then we should be also increasing their, deepening their content understanding and actually impacting graduation rates. So are you impacting graduation rates as a whole? Well, yeah, I think so. Overall we should see an increase. The other piece of paper that you have captures both the student outcomes, but also educator and administrator outcomes, outcomes for the communities in terms of increasing advocacy and awareness, and then we've got some very limited workforce outcomes, and then some infrastructure outcomes for our hubs and for the state as a whole. So what we've been trying to do is to try to capture the complexity of this system and how our efforts all line up and move. I hate that, move the needle and move the dial. So impact these outcomes in a positive way. How's that? Okay, so in your conversations today, let's make sure that we're considering those as part of this as well. Which ones are most critical for us, because we can't do it all. Whew.
So,
thanks, Thompson.
Now, we're dealing with obviously a very, very complex issue with many, many different parts. And part of our job is to gain clarity here, to help guide, that aligns all of the different pieces. And this is we all recognize this is we've been involved with this is a challenging task. It's going to take all of us to kind of put this together. So that's the reason why we came up with this idea of breaking out into our groups and coming and really getting down and pulling all of our individual perspectives, assets essentially, our different solutions together. Before we do this and break out, are there any questions about what we're trying to achieve here? Yes, Jessica.
I guess I'm confused about, are we really kind of, as you said with the metaphor of pulling things out of your pocket, everything from low-hanging fruit and early wins to much longer range action steps that have to be taken?
Absolutely. What we're going to do, this is kind of that creative chaos period, where we're really we're not trying to figure out where we put everything. We're trying to say, what are all the different options we've got here, so that we can then look at this and be able to say, well, wait a minute, let's go and actually begin to move them around and get them all into a bucket that allows us to then simplify our messaging back, because the problem is that if we just keep at the aspect of looking at all as individual pieces, we cannot get clarity as to how do we prioritize and how do we move forward.
Yeah. One other question related, are we looking at, because this could be very long lists, if every player in the system is involved, are we looking at specific tactics associated with what the state can do from the Investments Council perspective, or are we looking at everything?
That's a great question. I think that we're trying to look at the system as a whole, across policy, again, the platforms and the practices. And so what you're going to probably find, I'm anticipating that our conversations are going to range from very tactical maneuvers like we need STEM coaches, might be a silver bullet, type of a suggestion, to, wow, we need to do something about educator leadership understanding of STEM. So we may have, don't get too caught up in the grain size issue, I think, because we're going to drive ourselves crazy if we go into that, if we go into that conversation. But what we'll want to do is say, what are the things that we need to draw, even if we don't have a particular answer to the tactic, that we need to prioritize. We need to prioritize developmental math, for example, for me, or deal with math in general. That to me is okay, that's a BHAG in and of itself, and it could have several different tactics under that focus area.
But you do want those tactics under that BHAG.
Let's figure out what we get from this, and then let's start putting them together. But if we can get those big priorities and make sure that those are captured for sure, because that, if we don't do X, we're never going to make a difference. That sort of thing.
Okay, you have 5 groups. Are you giving each group a little flag to carry?
We are going to go and we're going to find 5 different spots. And how do you, and
then on the ones on the phone, you want them to type into the Google Doc?
We could do that. That works.
If they agreed on a group, we could just put the computer in a group. That one at least.
Yes, Jessica.
And I'm sure you've thought of this, but I would recommend that people, like for instance, we've got post-secondary here, we should not all be in the same group. I
Right.
think, because otherwise then you lose that.
Cross-pollination.
Exactly.
And so one of the things that we thought we would do here is we have some initial groups of, depending on the, we're going to be a little bit chaotic in how we form the groups. But we know Martin, for instance, Group A, okay? Joe, Group C. If you guys can take the lead for Group C. Group B, if we can have
Can
Kyle.
we do numbers? Can we just, since they're numbered 1 through 5 right there, can we just do that?
We'll do that. So okay. There was a reason actually why we're doing A3, but we're not going to go into that now. There was a madness to the reason. Okay, so Martin, if you could focus on take a center point for Group 1, baseline. Joe, Group 3.
And goal 3?
Goal
3. Sorry, thank you. Kyle, take a lead for Group 2. Jill, Group 4, and Beth isn't here, so can someone take a lead for Group 5?
That's public awareness and support. Did you want to do 5, Kyle?
5 and 2?
Or do 5 and swap it for 2?
Sure.
Either one.
Yeah, if you could do 5.
2 is really about the achievement piece, right?
It's about the student aspiration, skills, knowledge.
Okay. And then what we're going to do is that based upon that as initial grouping, if you're interested in one of those groups, go to those, the person who's leading that group, and that'll be the next of it. And then, Jessica, to your point, then we can see within, once we throw in those groups, are we looking at, and again, the intention here is to sit down and say, okay, let's start finding out what it is, all the different pieces of the puzzle that we have here at the different levels, and then be able to come back with a quick share out after that half-an-hour discussion. So these are the things that we would really like to bring to the table that we think are going to make a significant impact. And so, and Terrell, you had said that 3 was particularly interesting for you.
Yes.
So maybe you could work with Joe on that one.
I don't know.
Oh gosh,
This is like
okay.
going to be
Personalities. I thought we were parking
You two might agree, I'm not sure.
Okay. So does this? So are we clear what we're trying to do here? So we're going to take a half an hour. Again, it's going to be a little creative chaos, but this is. And on the group, on the phone, let's.
You could put some
We
on.
can ask
You put them
Anywhere,
all
they can type in.
Yeah, type in
text
anywhere.
any of
the names.
Do all of you have? Do all of you have access to the manifesto document?
No.
Okay.
Is that Leslie?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I've gone on to the website and I've gone on and I was able to download the framework draft and the student outcomes in STEM education, the little figure of folks, and that's all I have on my end.
Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I have here I've got the meeting workshop worksheet that we did. What we're gonna do here is I'm gonna quickly create a bit.ly URL for this. And you guys can go and gain access to the worksheet that was actually sent out. And if we could start to put in comments within each of those. It was in that email that was sent out, and Leslie, I need to get you that one as well. So let me go and create that.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
Very welcome.
Email to you. Yeah.
So would you like me to do 2?
Yeah.
No, yeah, she's currently assigned 2 and 5.
I'm
right?
happy to do 2. I feel like I'm,
Yeah. Well, we need somebody to do 5 then,
I'm not sure.
to take the lead on 5.
I can try, but
Yeah, I don't have a background in 5.
no promises, but I mean, I can take a shot at it.
Around community engagement.
Somebody needs to help.
we will do both.
Okay.
That's great.
I don't think that there's as much
Why don't we just,
on 5 yet.
let's not do 5 right now. How's
What I would
that?
say is public awareness campaign.
Yeah,
Yeah.
public awareness campaign.
We got that one nailed.
We define-
Communication, media packets,
Yes.
engage the CTE, STEM Employers Coalition,
Exactly.
and let them drive it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're just going to do 1, 2, 3, 4.
And there's already a bunch of stuff associated with Common Core and NGSS about this. and so on and so forth. So there's already so much going on
Yeah.
in Oregon and elsewhere that we can tap into. So this
And like a
requires a
one-stop.
thoughtful
Yeah.
tapping into existing infrastructure.
I think so too.
For some of it, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had taken some notes on it, Mark, which I'll
Okay.
contribute to the cause, which essentially is what
Okay.
everybody just said.
Wonderful.
You have some too?
So we've got 30 minutes. The groups should convene and don't spend time dwelling. This is generative at this point.
Yes, but where should we go? I don't know this place.
Yeah.
Break out into, we only have 4 groups, so 4 corners of a room.
What are the names again?
Post-secondary.
One is Joe, right?
4 is Jill.
If there's a way.
Kyle is 2. Joe is 3.
If you want to do number 1,
And Martin is number 1.
here's our table.
Let's do 4 over here on this side.
I
Okay.
don't buy it.
And our public guests, if you'd like to join us at any of those tables, feel free to.
You guys are good for my shirt.
Okay, Mark, I'm having trouble with my access. Do you still have access?
I do.
I need to get Leslie the URL.
Okay, but I don't have the
You borrowed that computer.
for the manifesto.
For the worksheet, you don't have.
I don't have the worksheet.
Yeah, you do. It's on that email that.
What's that, Bradford?
I'm being indecisive. I'm
possible to join in.
No one's in 2. No one's in, then that's exactly.
With which group?
Do you mind coming this week? So
No,
I
no,
might use that
Hello.
computer for,
2 or 4. I'm happy to go in any group, but
I think we're gonna try and connect him in with Jill's group 4.
We're going to connect him with Jill's
So
group
you
4.
guys gonna just meet around?
So you guys are going to meet over here around the phone and have Bradford as part of 4?
Jill, do you want to try and meet via the
there.
computer? He's also on the phone, because apparently the audio does not.
I was gonna unplug and try to go and talk to me.
Here, we're going to move you to Jill. And if anybody else is on the phone who doesn't want to be part of Jill's group on 4, well, sorry, that's what you got.
Yeah, somebody's lost my.
Yes, you.
You don't have, you have that.
I don't have the worksheet that you sent out.
But you have it from Joe's message. Joe.
She just replied, she didn't forward.
But it's in her screen, it's in her thread.
The attachment is in the thread.
But that, I didn't send it as attachment, I sent it the URL.
Did you?
Yeah. So it'll be in the thread of that.
And is that student shares?
No.
I don't know, I'll send it to you, and at the end of the day, I'll give you.
It's just I'll have 150 emails from Joe. So, So where does this go to? This is the interests or the tactics, this one?
So it's the worksheet, that worksheet needs to go, if you can forward that on to Leslie. And then Leslie can, and it's productive, have you guys access to the worksheet. You were able to do that?
Join a group? Chaos. Well, when we've thought, we sort of, it would have been good, I think, for us to see each of those with some of the, there's these outcomes that are associated with these don't translate into tactics. We've got this mismatch on the brain size pieces, right? They're tackling math, thing in itself, but we bury it under increased teacher quality, quality and effectiveness, and it doesn't give it that math thing. And how do you increase that by doing one of these things, maybe, or some people will say TOSes, so I think we're going to get a lot of different stuff, and it's okay. So I'm having trouble figuring out how to organize this in a way that ties the goals in a logical way with specific strategies as well, but also the outcomes necessary, so they're outcomes oriented.
And what we want to do, we don't pull out as goals.
Elementary.
No, well, why not? I mean,
we haven't.
But, right, so underneath these goals could be particular areas of focus.
Right. I'm trying to think about trying to get to the place of a matrix. Because we've got to be able to get these things in a way that I understand. That's why this is helpful.
Yeah.
Because it says, now I understand the story.
Yeah.
Right? This is the kind of story. But we've got to be real. If we are going
right, so if we're going to increase digital literacy and quantitative reasoning, what the hell do we have to do?
What does that mean? How
does that translate to programs?
To practice. This is why to practice is about, and that means a program is one means that, but it's not only a program because it's also. But how do we change the practice both in and out of school in order to achieve that?
Yeah.
Right. How does that?
For math.
Well, so here's where we need to have some balance, because there's the what and the why, and then how do we create the enabling conditions for the how to actually take place, and that's the platform and the policy.
Right. That's why we need to have the alignment to say we want to go here. This is the experience we want to create. What's the platform that's going to enable that practice? That's going to power that practice. So what does it mean in order for a teacher, because it's got to get down to what a teacher in the classroom. Right? How are they going to be able?
But it's not just the classroom, it's the out-of-school environments and the ecosystem.
That's just one example, right? But it is the ecosystem. But each one of those are the practices. How are we going to get the practice of problem solving, creative problem solving, after school in the enhanced environment in school? Right? How do we change our practice? I mean, this is
well, and here's prioritization, right? So the adaptability of the system is very low.
I know. This is from what it boils down to for me.
Okay.
Bell curve, power curve. Okay. This is our current paradigm. This is the paradigm we need. This is what we.
What are your axes?
This is when you typical classroom, right? You have a couple of kids who are achieving. You've got a couple of kids who are distracting. You've got this mush in the middle, slightly engaged, slightly disengaged, and the teachers are trying to push this forward, right? They're trying to move this piece of Jello in the middle.
Is this engagement or
So
is this?
this here is engagement, and this is number. Typical classroom, right? I've got a couple of kids out here, or 3 or 4 who are really. I got to make sure they don't get bored. I've got 3 or 4 kids over here. I'm trying to make sure they don't distract the classroom.
Okay.
I've got a lot of kids in the middle here who are slightly engaged or slightly disengaged. My job is basically to push this middle forward, right? This is the this is when I ask teachers, is this what you're seeing? And they are going, oh, that's it. This is their experience, right? This is the experience that's
the paradigm that they view it through. Yes.
That's right, their experience. This is when we see a classroom. This is powerful, right? This is when you've got kids who are just like, right, and they're just so excited. This is what happens with and Don, their teeth, right? They're just on fire and engagement.
Okay. Yeah.
This is a different experience. Big digression, that's probably it.
So we need to increase student engagement. Absolutely.
But that's the practice to get them to how do kids get excited about it? How do we create a platform that enables teachers to do that? How do we get after school programs to do that? How do we get the right curriculum in there that's going to allow that to happen? And the environment that's going to allow that to happen. The policy effects. So, it's like, well, where does this happen? Where are we seeing that happen? And so, part of what I'm saying here is that we have these traditional nodes. We've got all this stuff here. Where do we see it really experientially happen? How do we make sure that happens? So, that's kind of how I look at this stuff. This is the positive deviant.
Yeah, well, and then the theory of action. So that actually is going to transform that.
Right, and then everybody says, I want more of that. I want that experience. How do we get that? And so when we just say educator PD, which is a standard educator PD.
Well, we're not talking about the standard educator PD, I don't believe. And so what we have to do, or should be doing, is thinking about what's effective in terms of the professional learning. One is so if we're trying to do that, we'll say increase contextual understanding. We need to increase collaboration time.
Let me ask you, contextual learning, got it, okay?
Yeah.
Math, got it.
Yeah.
I've got a teacher in Dayton who says, how do you make that work? Teaching trick.
Right. Well, one, a teacher has to understand what it means.
No, I get that. I get that. But here's a teacher. I've got this ecosystem. It says, let's go do it. Where is the platform around her to say, how do I do that? How do I actually use online curriculum, contextual, and be able to then so I get kids moving as fast as they can, create an environment of co-learning, and then create a context, solve problems with tricks. Where does she go? To actually figure out how to do it.
That's only one piece. So I agree, but that's only one very small piece of the puzzle that we're solving with teachers.
I know, but you've got to solve each piece, and it's a strategic piece. Because if
it's the red herring, the curriculum, if you will, is the red herring of all education reform for the last 25 years. It does not work. Instructional materials is not sufficient.
Where does she go?
It is.
Where does she go to solve that problem?
Which problem? Where do I start?
I've got a class of trig students. I need to make that trigonometry real to them. I need to have a project that excites and motivates them so they understand where I'm going to do.
JFGI.
JFGI?
Yes.
What's JFGI?
For both. We really don't have to get kids. Algebra 1.
Problem-based mathematics curriculum. Common Core.
It's not that terrible.
Better way to teach math. There's curriculum resources. I mean, they're all over the place.
But where are we creating an ecosystem so that we're not asking every teacher to go and say, you figure it out?
Right.
Where do we come and say, this is where
So one of our strategies should be to create a platform where people have access to it. But there's so much noise in that. It needs to be something that educators can feel confident that this gets us to those. So what we need is actually a rubric that describes the kinds of things to assess what is a quality STEM lesson. And we can go to North Carolina, we can go to Arizona, we can go to Dayton, Ohio, that have all of these rubrics.
But the is that a teacher in one school needs to say, I want to do this and I have permission to do this. Where do I go? She needs to be able to say, go talk to Jill. The same way, I mean, this is what worked. Okay, what worked is that I had this principal who said, I don't know how to do a computer science program. I sat down with T and I said, can you help her solve that? T said, I'm on it. All of a sudden, that principal knows that she's got expertise and someone to guide her and figure that, put in a computer science program. Well, how do I get a world-class computer science program spun up fast? Because if not, you're going to flail again. And everybody's flailing. We don't have time to flail. So where do we say, if you want to spin up a CS program in Oregon, this is where you go and this is how you do it. If you want to improve your math, this is where you go and this is how you do it.
Hey, a college kid.
Because if not, no one else on the fly, we're winging it. And then we measure against that.
So I just made a note.
So this is where the STEM hubs are at. Because these notes of excellence. If that hub model is going to work, that hub model is going to be this is where it's going. For being able to take modules, best practices, and go plug. Because the teachers don't have time. They just don't have time to figure this stuff out. No, it's like, I gotta do another thing. I can't. This is the reality, right?
Yeah.
So this is that if we just kind of talk about, well, we need to do, the kind of the conceptual, we need conceptualization. We don't look at the reality of these teachers with, like have deer in the headlights look. Then we're just talking again.
And then also, this is providing access. Train the
So one of many things that we need to do, I will agree, we need to create access to high quality instructional materials and resources.
Best practices, we need to know where do I go for best practices for that.
Every day, within fourth grade,
That's really clear. You want to do that, you go. Recognizing that that's not the only source, but that there is a place that they can go and start. Because we're dealing with all these independent contractors, we're just trying to figure this out. This is kind of a platform issue that, we've started talking about, the platform.
Well, what we need to do is reduce the noise.
How is when you say reduce the noise?
So as an educator, I'm being told, go to see math. Focus on the basics. Okay, fluency. They need to know their math facts. Okay, so I start doing the math facts. Research shows that whole mathematics, increases students' performance performance on test scores, pressure to increase test scores. So I'm going to go with whole mathematics. Bad flashcard mathematics is what it is. Okay, so there's noise there saying I'm pushing here. The research tells me that. I don't know. Somebody else says go problem-based learning. Go to Dan Meyer. He has some huge contextual, has some nice lessons to think. Okay, but I don't have the confidence to use that because I'm also pressured to hear. Oh, I'm going to be evaluated on test scores, so innovation doesn't occur. Oh, my teacher, my principal, we don't have any collective time, so I'm correcting tests, and I have to go through this entire book. That's not going to happen. Okay, so I mean,
So I start shutting down.
So you shut down. So what we have to do before we can even get to that is to get permission, to get the leadership. We need to have the resources, absolutely. But there's like 4 things that teachers need in order to actually change it and to implement them. 1, they need time. 2, they need resources. 3, they need confidence in the ability and permission to do it. And they need to believe that they can actually do it. 1, that it's the right thing to do, and they know how to do it, and they have the support in order to do it. So, I mean, if all of those things aren't in place, it's not going to happen. I mean, so there's multiple layers of all of those.
But that's at the core of what we're going to do.
Right, I know.
And if we don't address that,
so how do we address more time? Well, so I think
more time is a you have to increase efficiency.
it's not more efficiency in the system. That is not what our issue is. Because people will, educators will scream at you. We need to focus on the things that matter and not the things that don't matter. And the things that don't matter are performances on test scores. So how do we as a system, as a platform and a policy, walk back from that? Understanding that we're not going to be able to.
It sure sounds boring.
Because everybody's locked into that.
Because they're locked into it. Okay, and that's only going to change when we start to change practice and people go, oh, it fucking works. They did it in dates. Okay, so to me, the only way, I mean, we can do some other things, in terms of going around and giving teachers permission to take risks and urging, principals to be courageous and to say, look, stop the insanity. We've had 40 years of this, it's not working.
Everybody knows it's not working.
Right. But they'll still do it anyway. Because the momentum, the climate and the culture of K-12. So what we have to do is disrupt that, which you've done on a local level.
Right, as a model.
As a start, but how does it sustain?
Right.
So we've had a lot of that kind of, that really works in our education system for a very long time. Project-based learning or problem-based learning or purpose-based learning is not new. Okay, but it hasn't stuck because of all of these other things. So I'm not trying to over...
No.
So this is just a necessary but not sufficient. And build it and you will come doesn't work for... But we need it.
You need it because so this is when I look at innovation within a large complex system, you have to have permission at the top. You've got to find the edges where no one's going to care. Okay?
But they all care so deeply. That's the challenge. The edge that they don't care is CTE, which is why this is such a promise to connect with CTE.
Right. No, but the point being is that when you start then to create a new positive deviant model, you start to create a new model, and you begin to get people going, I want more. You should have seen the people, the eyes of the people at Independence were up at date. They're like, cool, we want it.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow. Jamie, the principal there was just completely on fire. And, they're never going to believe someone like me. When they see Jamie and Kiana, their student, on fire, they want to go. And they said, how do we get that, right? So, I guess, we've got to work it away from those.
I know. Yes, exactly.
Right?
And it's going to continue to be chaotic because one of those is going to stick with somebody. Not all of them.
But you have to have the policy in place to give the, you have the platform in place to give the support, and the practice in place to create the experience.
They're also.
And I'm saying we can do platform and policy. Platform and practice. I don't think our policies, they're not going to change.
What are we doing here, Mark? Are we not at policies?
Yeah, but you want to get something passed to say test scores?
We are not going to get past.
No.
But we doesn't.
More time for educators? No.
Stop. That is our constraint. Okay?
It's a constraint.
It's a huge constraint.
Right.
Innovation happens within constraints.
Yes.
Right? So we have to say, here's an operating system of control. We need an dual operating system here. What's our dual operating system? Okay? You cannot just have a control operating system. You have to also have that create operating system.
Yeah.
Right? And we just say, well, there's only that one operating system. We're basically going to fight that one. That is not going to happen. No more than you can run a company without the control infrastructure for that company, right? But if you only are doing the control, if you're only trying to squeeze out efficiencies, if you're only going to put in Six Sigma, you will fail.
You will. Right.
You've got to create that operating system that allows for agile, problem-based, project-based, cross-functional solutions.
Absolutely.
Right? So the question is, how do we create that alternative operating system? That, to me, is our agenda here. Underneath it, because we are. I don't want to fight test scores. I want to create an alternative operating system that coexists.
So I think that what we're trying to do, one is we're deconstructing a culture. We're trying to influence a culture to create fertile ground for this to take hold. The way I believe that we do this is to interact with individuals who don't share the same paradigm as the educators within the dominant culture. They only see it this way.
And that is exactly.
So to me, the ways that we go about this is to change the beliefs and values and the perspectives of the educators within the system.
Basically, that happens by breaking down the walls.
Yes, exactly.
By
having people from industry like you sitting next to them
and saying, well, why are you doing it that way?
Exactly.
And they kind of go, well, we've always done it that way. Well,
exactly.
Is that really the best way? That's not how we do it in industry.
Thompson.
And as soon as I say that, everybody goes, it's not. And I said, no.
Exactly. So to me, that is a primary strategy. You and thousands of you across the state is my primary strategy in two ways. One, I want you and through our STEM hubs to be interacting more with classroom educators and out-of-school educators, because I think they share a similar bent to you. So get you and an out-of-school educator and 4 teachers, okay, within the system. To me, all of a sudden, assumptions start to shift and perspective shift. Okay. The other is to drive more career changers who have industry experience through CTE into formal classrooms of math and science. So that's another primary strategy that I feel is something that's going to shift assumptions. People who challenge assumptions and shift the culture and go, why the fuck are we doing it this way? This is insanity.
Right.
Are
we 1950 or what?
Exactly. But if we don't do that, it's not going to change, because what we've seen is a tremendous resilience. We are going through our formal, like our post-secondary, we've been talking about problem-based learning for 30 years. We train, new teachers in this, but they don't have the contextual understanding for it to stick in a deep way. I think the other thing is to require every single teacher to have 5 years of experience in anything, newspaper, barista, I don't give a rip, before they go into teaching.
You're not qualified if you only know how to.
If you only know the education system. So that's another I think is a huge leverage, but can we implement that? That one's a tough one.
That would be very hard. But when we come come into our tactics, that we're gonna have to go and distill this down to something that the innovation, that the council can go and say, this is gonna change. These are not just talk, because we're at the same problem that every single other state is. We're at the talk level. These are the great ideas.
Yeah.
How are we going to?
This is what frustrates me is
How's it going to happen?
we're going to come up with a great idea. How is it going to happen? There's going to be those key ideas where you say, okay, we're going to do this because this is necessary. You know, the resources, those are necessary.
But they're not going to come. We know that that's what we should do.
Well, we have a whole bunch online. I think that is an issue of aggregation, not of necessarily creation. And we can use it as a means for if we have a rubric or a structure of here are the qualities and attributes, and we know we have those rubrics, then get a you and 3 teachers and the out-of-school person to develop lessons, if you will, geared around that. Is it connected to a problem in the community? Is it an industry-driven? You know, does the content come after? Are you focusing on the big ideas and the practices before the content pieces? You know, there's some aspects to that are going to enrich it and increase success. And you develop lessons. So through the development of the lessons, that's an excuse to actually change a mindset. It's like in a community where you're building a community hall. Do they need a community hall in Tonga? No, they don't need another community hall because they've got 4 of them already. But what does it do? It creates youth leadership opportunities. So it's the ripple effect of creating this that matters more than this matters, quite honestly. So, yes, I don't disagree with this. But if we focus only on this, we're not going to be successful.
But if you don't also recognize, you got to get down to that.
We have to have a starting point.
You got to get down to that level because you've got to deliver. So you've got to.
You have to convert them too. Right? They have to see it to believe in it, to understand it.
You have to feel it to believe it.
Yep. You have to experience it.
Right. Because you can't. And
you can't just talk to their heads.
No. And the only way to do that. That's why So David Douglas signed up, the largest high school in the state, right? They're early on. We're launching the program. They're looking at it to completely reshape how they think about learning.
We're all leveraged.
So we're launching an innovation academy over the summer with 5 teachers who are going to learn. So I don't know how else to do it, but by doing it. But it's got to be all aligned around where we're going, where we're headed, and where the STEM hubs feel put in there in terms of developing the platform. Where does the strategic role of STEM hubs? What's the strategic role of innovation grants? If those are not strategic, and they're getting us to the place where we're having a culture shift, and the new support infrastructure to allow that to happen, then they haven't succeeded. You can't just go out there doing grants. Right?
I believe that these pieces fit to a larger, if it comes down to it, so we're really concentrating curiosity. What? Curiosity. I mean, if you were to boil it down, to me, is liberating people to follow their curiosity. Right. And creativity, so it's an application piece.
And to give them the confidence to do it. You can't know what cares because I can solve it. I can figure it out.
Yeah, it's perseverance, all that comes with it. Right. Yeah. Anyway, but if we're not shifting, so one is changing values of what is the North Star that we're looking for. If the North Star are these attributes and not necessarily content, that's a form of liberation. That's giving people permission to focus on different outcomes.
And that's why I'd say that the North Star is not, STEM is a means, innovation, power, that looks like curious problem solvers. How do we get there? That's what we need. And that to me is that piece that we've got. We've got to develop power, inspire,
yeah. The system's going to reject that without some other pieces. So what happened to the free love movement, the Sunshine Schools in the late 60s and 70s that completely took over England? You have two left, I think. Something insanely small, where people, why doesn't Waldorf actually take over all of our early learning environments? Because Waldorf is what we're talking about here, right? Waldorf schools are very much aligned to this. Why isn't the Reggio Emilia model up at Kairos and at the thing taking it? Because the system rejects all of those things. Exactly, because it's not specific enough. It's not tied to a fear of loss of control. Because we're in compliance and control. Yes, and so that culture, if you don't shift that culture, none of the innovations will stick. Right, and the places where it's stuck with you so far, and I look forward to seeing how it sustains and how it spreads, requires fertile ground for that to stick.
Absolutely. So it will not, and if you do not have that fertile ground, it will not work.
Yeah.
Right. But you cannot break mandate.
No, you can't mandate it. No. We have to create the conditions for it to
say, and that's where by breaking down the wall, and the only way that you can sustain that is if you keep being an isolated controlled world. In other words,
if you what? If you
maintain a reality where you maintain the boundaries of your own world, it can be sustained only by its own confines.
Right now.
Right. Well, and that is that works as long as you're only within an educational sphere. As long as once you start breaking those walls down, and you get non-educators talking with educators about what we want. You can't sustain that. Say, well, listen, what we're doing is sufficient. That argument doesn't hold anymore. It's not.
Sure, I understand what your point is. I'm hearing two things.
It only works if your own that control mechanism, that control mindset,
only works if
it's self-reflective and it's isolated.
Yes.
From the rest of the world.
Which is exactly what our system is.
Exactly. So
it's isolated, so we're deprived.
So the only way to break that down
is to deprivatization.
Basically, is to break holes in the wall.
Which is exactly what number one is really about.
Right, but how do we do that more effectively? It's more substantial.
Yes and no. So I'm double. Yeah, I think we can be more efficient about it. I also think that it needs to be, for people to feel empowered, it needs to be actually organic. So the communities themselves, I mean, this is something to wrestle with, right? It is, if the hubs are the ones who carry this vision of the manifesto forward and shift in outcomes and help educators break those walls down by connecting. I mean, everybody in the hub is required to have different governance structures, right?
I see the hub as a platform. Yes,
they're a platform, but if they're not champions, if they're not spreading the virus, then, I mean, they need to infect everybody that they're working with by connecting these people and understand that that's what they're doing. And they don't do that. I mean, they sort of do,
but they don't. But exactly, because again, most of them are coming out of an educational framework.
Yeah, which is why we're trying to force them to.
Which is why South Metro is saying capture the partnership with from the industry. And why important right. Because it's within an existing educational program.
Yes. And unfortunately, because they had the opportunity to have school. It's freaking amazing. But they isolated her and not connected her. So they wall off. The same thing that Sherwood does to Terrell. It's like, as long as you stay here and don't infect the rest, fine. Do what the hell you want. You seem to be good, but you're an outlier. Right. Just don't talk to that shop too shortly. So it is the isolation, breaking down the isolation. That's the critical strategy across all of these. But but it doesn't need to be a bad thing. It doesn't need to be a random. I think just do that. we're gonna get there. Can we get there more efficient? I'm not sure we're gonna sustain it unless we spread that.
And by efficiency, I only mean that we become institutional and focused. Correct, we gotta find, there's a wall there. How do you block that wall now? Where's the wall there?
Yeah.
And you gotta just be good. And then, once the wall is broken, then something happens.
Yeah.
It's not like we have to control what happens in that.
Yeah.
But once you get that conversation going.
Well, helping people understand that those walls are what's stopping it. It's key too, right? Yeah. How are we doing on time?
I think we ought to, hey guys, are you okay to wrap up?
Their interest, or there's somebody else on the team they hate.
You okay to do a shot in 5 minutes?
Okay.
5 minutes?
2.5? I'll give you 2.5 minutes.
I don't think we had these. Yes.
Yeah, we have to sustain that high school in the high school. There has to be something for it.
That's the way it was, Lisa, but.
Offer some choice.
I don't want to get my hands dirty.
And the
I'll
other
let it go
one,
by.
I was thinking about.
Thanks for joining this effort. We're gonna do this. I'm serious. It's hard to get it. And can we get more efficient about it and intentional? I really want to. I'm not sure.
No, I don't mean it to be efficient.
Yeah.
Efficiency for me is not about,
Science
efficiency is how you move fast.
You're elected.
And it doesn't mean that's not.
Stand independent.
But where are those catalysts? Where do we see?
That's where the levers are.
That's right. That's to me.
That's efficiency. Because this is not efficiency by squeezing out. Level there, level there. Right.
Yeah.
We don't know, that's.
We can't predict it.
No.
But we know it should be going that way.
Yeah.
And there is a bill, we can't pick it up, maybe keep a track of that.
No, we didn't do anything.
Would like to be.
I mean, I've heard one under Jeff, so I think we
Takes that passion. So, we're gonna, not to say Google.org as an example, new generation science is good indicator 5. So it's
There's no connection, there's all funding, a lot of it is much more from
new generation
So in
science.
order to blow it up, I mean, I'm trying to, I think
It
there's
could
more
be
attention to
mechanics, it could be
somebody
in the middle school, 3D printing.
I get this, but I have
But not so much
commit to certain things.
Yeah, it's that they have to see that they have to commit all of our outcomes.
Right. So just some kind of a, let's do this. Oh, and then person
What I tried to do is on these outcomes, blend some of the
you could actually pull photos.
things that are obvious
Every.
and the things that weren't so obvious. The obvious ones that we have to do is, increase math and science achievement scores. I mean, we have to do that, right? We have to increase college going rates. But underpinning it all is the cultural visions, our manifesto.
Her expertise in that area, they look to her for information, which is great, except the ideas, she has to be the source of ideas.
Successively find middle school makers,
And drive them with
so very
strategy, access to problem, train the trainer.
I think we, if possible, we need to get to a point where we're defining the characteristics of the PD and not just saying the PD.
A different deal than just saying,
It's the what.
right, oh, it's science.
It's place-based, it involves people from business and industry and the community. It's focused on contextualization, it's focused on problem-based learning, it's focused on criteria associated with the PD, not just PD.
But yes, sort of. I'll give a sort of. Yeah.
Industrial, it's all over. It's all over.
All right. What and the why?
So Mark,
Yeah.
what do we, Next Friday, we're supposed to do
Next Friday, we're supposed to send it to the STEM Council.
So,
We need to probably do 2 more iterations. This is only very cursory stuff. It's good, it's active.
we take all out
We lock ourselves in a room for 4 hours.
early in the week. But we're gonna need Are we looking at what's our time frame? Are we looking at what is our 2-year plan, what's our 5-year plan?
Yeah.
What's our 6-month plan?
We agree that we were going to be looking at 3 to 5. Right? I think a 5-year plan or a 20-year plan, 3 years. No, we were going to do 2. 2 plus 2. We're going to do next biennium or 4.
What do we want to do in the next 2 years?
And the 2 years after.
Right now, this is going to get funded for another 2 years.
And then we already have some pieces in place.
Right.
And so where are those assets?
So the purpose of this
Fund the assets.
is to help us for 2 years.
Like, right.
I think this is, I don't know, I think that we can be looking at this in terms of, we'll see what gets generated. So some of this might be a 5-10-year window, and we get there and say, okay, here's our 5-year, 10-year window. This biennium, here are the 10 things that we need to do this biennium that move us that direction. We need to focus our STEM hubs on contextualized professional development, internships for teachers, for students. That students don't change the system.
But a teacher be the primary liaison. So
Why not?
you see, work on projects.
I guess we do some internships, right?
Fund those as assets,
It's
as long as they have.
Portland Metro, but to me, what the hub is this connectivity. It's this melting pot and coherency because one, the educators hear all this noise, and so they need a trusted partner to filter the noise. Industry goes, I want to help, but nobody will play with me. So they're the connector between industry, out of school, and K-12 with these broader aspirations. So they try to bring that coherence in programming. Yeah. Oh, we're going to involve the Umpqua forestry department and get kids outside and have them doing math by estimating 4 feet in the forest. So they're going to support programs that move the needle on some of these things. But it's that coherence in the
Do we have a way to measure?
I think they would, I think
partnerships as a requirement. Do we have a way to actually do the metrics that we measure this?
I think they would be very welcome.
How many partners do you have? How many volunteers? How many?
Not really. We try to.
That is a preliminary response.
One thing that we.
Yeah.
They have to be, they are the hub of which we bring in industry, out of school, or and how many schools are they aligned with? How many programs are they aligned with? How many companies are they aligned with?
And do we, how many as well as the quality of?
The quality of, yeah, but in terms of number of volunteers, in terms of interaction, and connections.
Yeah.
Do we?
That needs to be a part of, that's what this framework is.
But that's part of the strategy, that's part of our tactic. So we have to overlay a KPI at the top of your
That's what,
This is their job.
yeah. So these would be the outcomes, and then within each one of them, there would be indicators, so metrics associated with that work, number of volunteers, There's, number of internships. You're involved actually on, one, it's just getting them to have, right now, in 2 years, it's just getting them to have.
Not a lot.
And some of the hubs haven't worked with economic development and workforce, or meaningfully engaged, like this one has a meaningfully engaged industry. They have, at all. And they don't seem to want to.
They need to be called on the table and say, this
They are.
Yeah. This is
They won't get fined.
And there's others where we are
Well, so between you and me.
industry professionals sometimes, so example, repairing, clean, repairing,
Science for parking lot chemistry.
A lot of water in school as a mechanism,
Raise the
water quality,
president.
cleanliness, as a mechanism for assessing chemical because our teacher,
All along with Andrew
they don't care. They don't care if it goes like, what is it, drugs? They don't care about that. But broadly, they don't care.
Yeah.
And so she had the idea of what if we said water, like we got a glass of water in front of you, it's like this. Do you want to drink it? No? What's in it? How do we know?
If PSC doesn't come through, then I'm going to give it to work
Is there
system.
something, kind of that?
Honestly, and the team.
And the idea that
So if you guys already have a partnership and you want to take that over, take over. I want to cool.
Could look bad, actually, you can quite a lot of us. Others look clear, right? It can actually have really nice stuff in it, so just that idea. And this doesn't happen actually. So in that case, it's professional. Right. So the teachers are, going into the lab and looking at how water is
Relational skill center.
Right.
Thank you. It's like, does not play well with others.
So a little career fair.
Hey guys, are we ready? Are we ready to get this dancing up here?
We have
Wow.
interface.
I fight fast.
I know. My sister.
Right. So I think this would be a great state
Let me just say that if I came in here feeling like I had too much coffee to drink, you guys have basically proven me wrong because there was a little bit of energy in this room.
How can I email that to anybody?
So can we all come back together again and can we go and start to kind of coalesce what we just
I
learned?
just need to get on.
And then be able to kind of and then we got to start, reflecting and listening to each other and challenging and exploring and digging deeper in some of the things that we're hearing here. So group number one? Martin, that was yours, right?
Yes.
Yes.
We're answering for him.
He's trying to get on it.
Oh, he's trying to share his screen?
Email you the document.
That would be great.
Thanks.
So how are we going to do this from a technology standpoint? Martin, are you going to give a shared doc or what are you going to do?
Well, I wanted to send you a doc so that you guys have it.
And you're going to...
Do you just want to talk through it then,
Sure.
if we can't do that?
I can do that. I just,
Well, it would be
Can we
great if
send
we
them
could
all
see
and
the
then we
doc.
can see them? Or
Yeah,
is
that'd
that
be
too
great if-
difficult?
We can certainly
I
try.
don't know how to do that, but maybe someone here does.
no.
We should be, if he's logged in, he can share his screen.
PSU guest, and then you're in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just works, but I can start. We certainly decided to become adults and have 21 tactics.
This is generative, that's okay.
And we haven't ordered them, so this is just a whole long list of them, and I'm not sure it's actually useful to go through it, rather than to broadly speak to the broader things we address.
Why don't you start with a broad, and then if you can kind of do a quick summary of some of the things.
Right.
Kind of,
Okay,
so what did you learn going through this process?
So the first thing is we took apart a little bit the goal number one, which says increase the number and diversity of students who successfully complete post-secondary credentials, which is degrees and certificates, in high-demand STEM-related careers. So the first thing we realized is that there is increased number and diversity. And then there's the question, are these connected? Is it a separate increase the number, irrespective of diversity, and then the diversity, or increase the number through diversity? Which means, are there tactics that can be done simply to increase the number, and then separate to increase diversity? Just as a reminder. Completing post-secondary credentials, it says degrees and certificates. We actually thought that there are people who go back to a community college with degrees in something. They just need one course in programming language, and then they take that course and they leave, and that counts at the community college level as failure because they didn't get a certificate or a degree. And we
But they
feel
got a
that.
job. But they got a job or
They have
a
a job.
raise.
They actually didn't want a degree, and so we just mentioned as a component of that we need to be smarter in understanding what it means for people to get post-secondary credentials. And be smarter in counting it or finding ways to include this, because it's increasingly more something that happens, and it would be unwise of us to ignore that. It's this kind of targeted approach towards getting what you need in post-secondary for your career.
So Martin, did you also talk about the whole idea of micro-credentials?
We talk about badging.
Badging, exactly.
Yeah, we have it in there.
Do you have that as part of it?
Yeah, we have that in there. And then we were dubious about the high demand. Knowing from workforce studies how difficult it is to say what's going to be high demand in 10 years, we were focusing just on STEM-related careers, even though we did put computer science in here. So we weren't even about computer science. But it's very hard to say what will be the new thing in 10 years. So let's just stick to STEM. That's our little thing. And then in that sense, broadly speaking, it does have components of that in here, suggestions in this 21, that begin with pre-college. It begins with asking ourselves a question that has to do with diversity, a variety of measures that have to do with the idea of getting people to even want to go to college and are ready to be at college. And then when they come to college, given that they're non-traditional students, is the current model we oftentimes use, particularly in four-year colleges, of who a typical student is and what a typical student needs. Does it work for students who are non-traditional? And there's a variety of things we are suggesting that would address the issue that the typical non-traditional college students may not be served by what we currently do for typical four-year students. So that's one thing. That's a big one. We did talk a lot about the idea of through badging or some new way of counting, the notion of getting your potential pathway recognized. So it's a way to basically address the lifelong learning. We have called it that way in here, but we can still do that. The lifelong learning component, and that's not just because I come from lifelong learning. It's not in here.
Oh.
But it is the idea. You're right, to be somewhat more aware of the idea that a new way of thinking about this might be. We excluded things we felt were already working in our list. So we didn't tackle broader questions of improving undergraduate education or STEM education in general. There's lots of trains that are already running at high speed. We don't need to be particularly concerned about it. Nor do we have to be too concerned about the idea of linking the high school, college, community college, and four-year college thing. There's lots going on there as well. We felt no need to highly prioritize things that we felt are already being addressed. But the question if that's true. In math, we were certainly concerned about a bunch of stuff in math, not only the preparation of coming in, but also the idea of losing. So there are multiple things in math. What about the last year in high school and the requirement that you in some way stay connected to math? What about summer bridge experiences for math? And then the idea of replacing remedial courses with specific need-based courses in the disciplines where you need that math. So right now, the system, well, that's generally recognized, but making that actually a reality in Oregon would help a long way, go a long way. We have a variety of suggestions about computer science. One of which is to put computer science elements into the disciplines so that Higher Education Council or someone else can
provide, or investments could be made into infusing more of computer science and computational thinking into the various kinds of courses that already exist, rather than make it a separate thing. It reminded me of the Hour of Code CEO and founder, who talks about the idea that these 1.4 million computer-based jobs are not necessarily computer science jobs identified as computer scientists, but computer science skills needed in all this. So, we talked a lot about, not a lot, but we talked about some kind of more boot campy things related to non-traditional audience or other audiences. Right now we do boot camp in the beginning of college for athletes and stuff like that, so but there are others who might benefit from that. And then we talked a lot about work-based learning, internship, service-based, and project-based learning. Variety of tactics that relate to the idea of relevance as you are in post-secondary right now and connect already to the workforce. So that's broadly speaking what we are in 21.
Awesome. Wonderful. That's great. Any thoughts, reflections, Theodore?
The ASOT, the Associate of Science in Computer Science. So that has been built and is soon to hit, and students will be able to go to the community college, take the 161, 162 CS courses, and have a community college degree after 2 years, but will transfer right into continued 4-year degree at OSU, for example. So the whole idea of having a credential mid-track for employment and then continue it is in place. And their next effort, OUS, Marcia Fisher's been working on that, will be the engineering ASOT. So that's, I think, I would really love to support that idea. My students would, I talk to them often, get skilled and be ready to work at any point in time as you work towards your higher degrees.
So it's called ASOT?
ASOT, Associate
ASOT-CS
Oregon.
hasn't been funded yet. It's been approved by the HEC, but it's kind of a still, right now, I believe, a back pocket project because there's limited amount of resources that can work on it.
It's interesting though, I saw some data yesterday that we're helping prepare for the HEC, and it addresses this point exactly: how many students in the community college program are earning credentials, but they're going straight on to university or to jobs, and so they've already earned it, but we just haven't named it or labeled it. And so I think if we get smarter about recognizing them and making the institutions aware of it and the students aware of it, then we do get those credentials that build to the 40-40-20 and help with momentum and everything else. So that's sort of a policy level.
And I think I'm seeing here that we've got to look at credentials in multiple different dimensions. One is the big credentials, then we've got mini credentials and micro credentials, right? So maybe what we have is an ecosystem of credentialing, which is much more dynamic. And that's really where the future lies. So that may be kind of a big catch-all for us to go. Could we?
And just a note to build up that. Drafts exist of an ASOT in chemistry, bio, and physics as well.
And pre-engineering, I believe.
It has some legs.
So any other quick feedback before we jump on to number 2? Martin, thank you so much. That was great. And can you share that document with us?
Just went to the 2 of you.
Thank you so much. Group number 2. Who is leading group number 2?
Kristen.
So
She took the notes.
Yeah, I was the typer, so I guess I get to talk. I emailed them to you, Mark. My Wi-Fi hotspot was dying, so I just sent it fax, so you have it.
All right.
I'll focus on what we did for number 2, but you'll notice in the notes that we had thoughts across all 5. So
Across the universe?
Preview of coming attractions. We just saw a lot of overlap. So some general, we're focused on instruction and providing supports to have effective instruction. Thought those would probably be fleshed out in 3 and 4 already, so we'll let that lie. And a push around increasing hands-on lab-based student experiences. Again, those exist in a lot of locations, but a push for that. We focused on math and math alignment. So thinking about some of the current barriers that exist. In STEM, as an example, in high school, there's a math requirement at most high schools of Algebra 2 concurrently to get into chemistry. once they leave that path and they end up in science elective land, they never come back. They'll graduate with maybe a year of biology and then oceanography, environmental science, whatever electives add to their requirement. So if we can help keep them in the kind of key path there of chem, physics, and bio, by looking at the math they actually need to know, building off what you said versus the math we've just always required. Also developing hands-on math curriculum, elementary, etc., and helping to push it out. Actually helping to provide the PD and hands-on, and have it aligned to science, engineering, and statistics needs, not the typical math canon. So actually acknowledge that the typical canon is not needed, but really align it to needs and skills they'll be using later. Actually looking at the placement test, I know institutions don't get to impact the placement test, but looking at it based on the needs, again, just what you noted. Figure out how to help folks access some of the online tutoring tools for math. There are costs to some, and some there's just barriers as far as if I don't know the names of the math skills that I don't have, I can't look them up. I can't go on Khan Academy if I don't know linear equations is my problem. So helping to put some language to that can help students. Literally require 4 years of math, require 4 years of science. Require CTE. Remove it from elective land by requiring it. Let's see, in some locations we do have where high school math and community college syllabi in math are aligned, and so a student can earn college credit in high school, which maybe we start with with courses below 100 to try and mitigate some of the requirements around instructor having a master's in math. But that would also help give students a leg up. Also provide supports and tutorings in math, support for tutors, resources around tutors, because we have a lot of organizations trying to help students in math, but they just don't have the resources and skills. So then we find a college kid and say, tutor a younger kid. It doesn't mean they know the math, it doesn't mean they can teach it. Connecting classrooms and career was another theme for us. So developing a set of achievement indicators along an education to career continuum. So actually have indicators that we try and step kids through instead of just saying we're trying to prepare you for career, kind of a broad statement. Facilitate career explorations to explore relevancy, and ideally during class time and tied to content, ideally. So we're doing this in class, you enjoy it, here are some careers that utilize it. Consider capstone projects with CTE or STEM professionals. Help with access to internships, summer research, other employer-based opportunities. Help to facilitate classrooms or out-of-school providers and employers working together, or employees working together. Another was just naming STEM. So a lot of kids don't know what it means. So if I'm doing something that's integrated, I'm doing a STEM activity. Help them know that so they can feel confident. Oh, this was interesting, I liked it, I understood it. So build some facilitation there. Facilitate site visits so folks can literally see high quality STEM instruction, CTE instruction, I use those interchangeably, in action. So let me see, you want me to do something differently? Let me see what that looks like. Don't just tell me to do it differently. From the STEM hub perspective, perhaps there are ways that we and the business community and the councils can be liaisons together where having a specific district or a specific association or a specific union might be a barrier because it seems like you're being committed. If we invite a specific district to the table, oh, we're empowering them in some way. And if that sends the wrong message, how can we help get the knowledge that we need without, while avoiding kind of the political issues. We had some systems, incentive funding for STEM and CTE, equivalency credits, looking specifically at math as it's applied in STEM and CTE courses, and then others where we have lots of groups to talk.
Cool, that's great, thank you. Any quick thoughts on that? That was great, Chris, thank you. Cool. So you've sent it over tomorrow, so we've got that. That's perfect. Wonderful. Okay, let's move on, and we've got about 15 minutes left. And then we need to have a little public comment time. Group 3.
Number 3, 2 components, we don't have it electronically, we will soon. In-school and out-of-school efforts to get to students. I'm going to start with the in-school at the 3 levels that you see on your colorful graphic there. The K-5, use the new generation science standards to get into and reach the kids through code.org, robotics, game design, the things that are required. Those aren't required, but the new generation science standards are, and that is a door to get in and do that and train those elementary teachers. And you'll hear, I may sound like an advertisement now and then through Oregon Computer Science Teachers Association, and that's because I am, because we've been doing it for 30 years. And we are training elementary teachers on how to use new generation science standards to do this code thinking, design thinking, and such. In the K-8 area where there's more flexibility in the curriculum, because you're not tied to some of the things the high schools would be, makerspace, 3D printing, robotics, game design, or you can create a smorgasbord of that kind of design thinking course, which we actually have at Sherwood Middle Schools. We have that experience-based design thinking program at our middle schools. Those can be put in there, and administrators have more flexibility in the curriculum to do that. At the 9-12 level, at the high school level, they build broad CTE programs, and we have a problem in that I don't think the administrators in Oregon, mine does, but not all administrators in Oregon understand the value and the need and the social justice requirement to provide an experience for the students. We cover our engineering computer science kid at Sherwood High School. We get half of them experience that before they graduate. But that's not happening in the schools around Oregon. Only 1 school in 7 in Oregon offer any form of coding. And if you add engineering to that, there might be maybe 2 schools provide coding or engineering, but rarely both. So it can happen.
High schools, right?
These are only high schools. And so we have to market to COSA, to Oregon School Board Association. We have to market to them and say, you can't do that, because what happens is that money comes with the student at the high school level. If you have 25 students wanting to take a class, money comes with it for the teacher, maybe not so much for the infrastructure. But the money comes with the students. So it's a marketing issue, it's a will to do that we have to market to the decision makers, the administrators. So there's I say broad sense of CTE because it's engineering and it's woods and it's metal fabrication, it's ag, it's interior design. It's those things that we are very interested in. On the out-of-school programs, the ECHAMP model, Thompson talked about fail fast. We don't need to do that anymore because we have models for the exact concept that we're talking about. After-school programs, and let's target K-5. Let's say that we want 25% of our students in Oregon because we have, athletics covers at least 25% of our students. How about that athletic model? It's after school. It's supported by teachers. I'm a coach, track coach, I am a teacher. But I also have track coaches who are not teachers. So we have a synergy of community support to do these after-school programs. Well, why not do that for design thinking? And let's catch the students in grades 4 through 6 where they are building their mental idea of a career pathway. Do I like math? Do I like science? Do I like design? Do I like to do these kind of things? And then provide in-game competitions such as game programming contests or top robotic contests. The contests that are athletic, similar to athletics, which floats the kids' boats. So that model already happens. It has happened. It has run out of funding, and I've been involved in it, and I have been able to sustain it from in Sherwood. And the demand for classes in computer science and engineering at Sherwood High School goes beyond me now. They're going to have more of me. Now, that's not necessarily a good idea, on somebody's opinions, but the point is that we need, if we can create demand using this ECHAMP idea, and the model is there. And so here's the numbers. if we get 25% of those kids in that decision-making area, there's 56,000 of, the 25% represents 56,000 in Oregon at $200. If we say $200 to do this, that's 11 million bucks, folks. That's all it is. And a tremendous ROI. So here's where we need to do less talk and more action. We have numbers, we have concepts. Let's just get $11 million. Let's create a grant process. And if somebody in Joseph, Oregon wants to do it, how do you get money from here to Joseph, Oregon? It's pretty easy, because you need to find a champion parent or teacher with 25 kids to do a robotics contest or a game design contest. The model's there, we've done it.
Or use the money to bring them to the program.
And those contests, to bring them to those contests.
Yeah. For the equity project.
Absolutely. So it's money, and where does that come from? It can be a combination of fees, or a small amount of fees, plus state funding, plus district support, plus business industry support as well. And it can be managed through the hubs, through the STEM Council. I mean, the structure is there. Other things that we talked about is shadowing, mentoring, internships. You talked about capstone. You talked about those things at the secondary high school level where it extends their experience, and business can really be involved in that. And Herb was a big champion of that, and he has a dream there. He's already done that, and it does work. Build CTE programs of study. That structure's all in place for the Perkins grant monies, and dual credit's an issue that we need to drive as well to help incent students to get on that train and to move forward. So, and Herb and Joe come back.
And that would be like shadowing. We need some help training the businesses or understanding how to host. Because you have to have cultural competency too to bring it in.
Both on the host side and the kid side, as I pointed out. You don't want to show up at the office dressed in gang wear.
Right. Yeah.
So that'll work. Also talked about hooking deeper into professional associations. So I would say in sum, make the ecosystem wider access, higher quality. Kids need a plethora of programs over their entire lifetime so they can personalize, choose what they want to do the deeper dive in, meet the challenge, get the dopamine hit, understand that they like building their confidence and their competence, and reaching that critical mass of participation. So the same way you have the coterie of parents who carpool the kids to make sure they get to their game, they carpool the kids to make sure they get to robotics practice, or dressmaking workshops, which also have a high component of math. Design thinking, iteration.
So, because our time is very limited, we still have two. Oh, actually, we only have one more to do because we did.
Yes.
Oh, fear.
Because number 5's Kyle. Yeah.
Five we could probably. Are my notes over there?
Yeah.
I seem to have lost them.
So Jill, could you?
I'll go fast.
You're gonna.
Okay.
Go fast.
Go fine.
So I'll just highlight. So I've shared with you, and the document you shared with us, we have our tactics. It was more like a brainstorming. I'll just point out a couple of things, and everybody else, please feel free to chime in if I miss some stuff that is important here. So this is all about increasing the quantity and effectiveness of Ps through 16 STEM educators, both in and out of school. So that's the context of what we're talking about. Some of the things that came up was things that are already there in terms of tactics, like support organizations that provide professional development in the context of what STEM and CTE is. So provide a clear framework for what that means. Instead of just do PD, what does STEM/CTE PD mean, and what should be part of that professional development? So that's nothing new there. The second one was promote some teacher-coach visit models, wherein we have effective STEM teachers, and they work throughout multiple school districts throughout the year, and they share effective curriculum and strategies. So that is, somebody goes into multiple schools who's an expert, and then what you get out of that is you're actually, that person is in front of students with the teacher doing stuff in the classroom, and then they lead that out through their department. So it's kind of this fan-out approach to professional development, and it's not separate from the school. And it's very effective. Some other stuff, support hybrid teacher leadership network models, so utilizing the hubs, and I'm not just saying this because I'm part of the hubs, but to really promote organizations coming together, leveraging people together and sharing practices that are grounded in the classroom. Something that Bradford pointed out was we get a lot of bang for the buck when we have people teaching and also working in this leadership capacity, in that duality of roles, lead stuff back in. So having more people out there doing things like that, where they're not just doing the leadership stuff or just doing the teacher stuff, but doing both, is a good investment of money and time. Let me see it. Something that came up too was credentialing. So education credentials. So integrate an applied component to teacher training. A lot of times teachers come out of training and they don't have a sense of how to apply anything in the classroom. There's some partnerships that are modeled between Pacific and Woodburn, where they actually do a lot of their training at Woodburn High School. That was highly effective. Chip brought up, he works for ScienceWorks, so partner with outside entities for teacher PD, so we can leverage some of that. Let me just get a couple more and then I'll stop. I can see the room is getting. Some other interesting things were STEM endorsements through CTE. Thank you, Brad. So STEM endorsements through CTE would be if you're working for a district and you do professional development as a teacher, there's some endorsement you get that then identifies you as a teacher leader throughout that district. It doesn't have to be anything through TSPC. It can be kind of a district thing, and this came from your partnership, which I thought was brilliant. So it promotes teacher leadership.
So tell me how that works.
What I heard, and probably Kristen can be better on this, but certain districts can get together, like I work for Charlton High School, and they can say, okay, if a teacher does a certain amount of professional development, they attend SuperQuest, they take some online classes, they do some stuff where they work with other teachers through the district, through training other teachers, or for going in and doing some partnership model, they get some type of an endorsement in their file, whatever you want to call it. When we were a kid, we had those files, you know, that identifies them as a teacher leader. And then when there are opportunities that come up in the district for leadership positions, they're looked at. It's very hard to identify teacher leaders in a district, and sometimes it goes to people that might not be the right people.
So I wonder whether or not that might be a way that we could also use the badging model itself.
Could be badging.
That gives us kind of a secondary model where we can work with Oregon Badge, and so that could be something that, again, would be industry supported, but it would allow us to move fast on that type of
It
solution.
also allows the adults to demonstrate badging.
Yeah.
When we're going to turn around and ask kids to demonstrate, to care about badging, maybe we could try it out ourselves.
Sure. And then flexibility too. You want districts to be able to say what they feel is important. And I'll just do one more and then I will stop. The other thing I thought was brilliant was STEM awards for students based on programs of study, where if students take CTE classes, they get some type of stamp on their transcript. So when they apply to college, they could say, I did applied stuff, or when they want to go into the work field, I did applied stuff, or badging, this ties into badging, but also with the scholarship component. So maybe businesses can come in and say, hey, if you do this STEM program of study, we're going to award some scholarship or some carrot to come work for us for an internship. Ways to pull kids in to take these classes. Would be beneficial. So I'll let you read through the rest. But
And there's a model for that, First Robotics.
That is First Robotics. They do it primarily through Autodesk, but if that can be branched out and built out, it's great synergy for the companies and for the students. And the rest is all in there for you guys to read at your leisure.
And to that point, I'm not sure, I know we didn't mention it, and I'm not sure where it belongs, but the notion of the personal achievement record, which is one of the goals of the OEIB, but that's a place every student would have their own personal achievement record, and that's where all of those credentials and badges and courses could lie. The modern day file.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's something that employers could, we could build a system where it was valuable to employers.
Essentially like a portfolio model.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
it's
a systemic policy goal, but I think it may be a place to hold all of these credentials, and I wouldn't want
It's
to
a critical
lose sight
piece of the longitudinal data system work.
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's the process piece. Like I say permanent record tongue in cheek, it would be something accessible from a statewide perspective.
There will be, the trick will be not to turn a portfolio into another kind of standardized test disaster.
No.
I know, but there's conceivable ways in which you can mess it up.
Too
I just wanna say-
easy.
Yeah,
to dump
the
things
control
down
of that
and
is
systematize.
the control, the ownership of it is with the student.
Yeah.
So it's not with anybody else.
Yeah, that is.
So that's
They
it.
have total control. I mean, and the, where it becomes a system goal is you would require schools to put content on it and that sort of thing. So it's a high level goal, but I think it's really critical to monitoring a lot, or capturing it, I guess. Oh, I had one other
Thank you.
thought about this, and I don't know if this is something you can do or not, but we have, the big professional development fund that was passed last time around. The OEIB has the professional development.
The Network of Quality Teaching and Learning.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
So can we as a system say that we would like a portion of that to be directed towards STEM topics? So sort of utilizing, because how much is it? It's a big fund, isn't it?
$700 million, I think. I don't know, I think it's 30.
And then we're through the house.
I just wanted something absurd so that people wouldn't actually believe me.
One question, so you focused on K-12.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, this has always been a peeve thing for me. In 12th grade, we care about the quality of our teachers. In 13th grade, we don't give a
No, actually, if you go down, if you were to scroll down.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
There was one on there.
We did talk about that at the end.
Okay.
I don't know how to scroll. Anyway,
What's your suggestion?
it was,
What do you want to do?
it was in part, we talked about how this is supposed to be P through 16, and we've been talking about P through 12 for most of this. And we talked about some of the challenges, at least at the community college, which is the world I know, in which you have academic freedom and you have folks who've been in their roles a long time, and you have some real resistance to top down. And so we're seeing some really innovative, one way to see the flow of this work, which is a lot of it's already happening into K-12, is to have more professional learning communities between K-12 and community colleges. And in that way, you've got, we've seen some wonderful things just in the pursuit of dual credit, although that we haven't addressed the quality of teaching or applied learning and dual credit. It's more about.
So are you talking about professional learning communities of teachers across, from 12th grade into 13th grade, including four-year institutions?
Yeah, I would hope so.
Because that's exactly my suggestion, is that would be useful to have actually university teachers, also called professors, realize that there's a professional component to what they do.
Exactly.
By connecting to high school teachers.
Yeah, exactly, because otherwise you'll have the gap between the
We always
sectors.
think of this as, these poor high school teachers need to be helped by university folks. It's the other way around.
Particularly with all this energy.
So fascinating, I mean, this fantastic input. I think we're still in that generative place. I think attending to some of perhaps the challenges or systemic barriers to these, or the systemic constraints and realities that we're operating under, and put that lens on some of these to help us prioritize. When I think about undergraduate, the quality of post-secondary teaching and learning environments, that tends not to change if that's not valued and recognized within a university system that actually has promotion systems that are placed in other ways, not focusing on educator quality. I recognize that the potential and the power of, in terms of an assets approach, where we're recognizing teacher leaders in the state who are doing great things already, and how do we harness them to really infect others in the state. So thinking more about how can we utilize the great work that's already going on out there and deprivatize the practices and let them loose to infect others in the system. I think that as we put some systemic lenses on these things, I hope that some other stuff starts percolating out for us to say, oh, well, why aren't we doing that? I noticed that, a focus on access to high-quality instructional materials and resources wasn't necessarily identified, as a piece of that, but that is certainly, a potential area for us, and there's already some work that's already going on, particularly around the Next Gen and Common Core. And
there's not great curriculum yet for Next Gen, so it's probably one of the reasons why it doesn't come up. So it's out there labeled Next Gen right now. In most cases, it's absolutely not.
Yeah, and yet I feel like when I do Google searches, I find, there's tremendous amount of resources. They're just in hundreds and thousands of different spots. There's a great thing around using economics, real world applications of economics to make statistics and data work, real for students anywhere from an elementary school through post-secondary, and there's like 2,000 project-based learning lessons around that. So I think part of it is
because you have 2,000, which means
yes,
nobody will use any of them because they're so confused.
They can't find them.
Right. They don't choose a single
Who has time to go through the 2,000?
Well, and I think
that's one of the biggest problems that we found in terms of
noise.
The noise.
Too much choice.
The noise to signal ratio is
first on the search
normally
field. You
isn't
try it.
out.
Yeah. So I think that there's multiple ways that we can think about how we diminish
a way to
that.
focus might be some of those critical points. I mean, thinking about college professors, honestly, if the chem professors were better, you got to go through chem to get into engineering. You got to do that to get into physics. You got to do that to get into bio. It is a gate course taught in often the most painful way possible. We've all run the gauntlet. A lot of us have probably run that gauntlet. So that's an access point that could be a way to say, maybe we could talk about this now for these professors, as an example.
So in recognition of time, we're at the end of our session. We've got, everybody's shared the documents with Mara, except Terrell, your group has to type it up.
It's going to have to be typed up, and I'll send it in later today.
Thanks.
That'd be great.
I just want to make one comment. If we're successful, we're going to have a dire need of teachers. We can't find teachers now for many of our CTE STEM-related skill courses. And like I said, 1 out of 7, if we get up to 2 out of 7,
we're still.
We need 100 more computer science engineering type teachers, and where are we going to get them? Watch these two bills, Senate Bill, House Bill 3058 and House Bill 2624. 2624 is grants for colleges to do some CTE trainings. 3058 is the Don Domes T. Smith model, where, sorry to say, PERS won't allow me to, if I have a choice. I have to retire.
So I think one of your points is that we have to attend to teacher, the quantity and quality of teaching, teachers as well,
staffing,
with the experiences.
We have to get them from the pre-service. We have to keep them a little bit longer if they are willing to stay. And then we can maybe address the staffing issue.
That points up a systemic thinking issue. So when you look at your tactics, look at what surrounds them, you have perhaps identified a necessary piece. What bottlenecks is it going to create? If you succeed at that piece, what bottlenecks is it going to create around it so that it's not just necessary but sufficient solution?
Thank you, Jim. Public comment. Do we need to? Is there anybody that we
signed
up
or on the phone?
Anybody sign up for? Are we all good?
Public
signed up.
No one signed up. Great.
Okay.
The others left.
So,
Next steps.
Next steps.
Next steps were to be, presenting something to the STEM Investment Council this next Friday, around this. I'm not sure that we're going to be at a place where we may be able to put something forward to them, but it seems to me that there's an awful lot of work that still needs to be done before we push this out. What I would love to encourage this committee to do is take another close look at these outcomes, comments on those, apply a systems level thinking to this, to elevate these to key, not silver bullets, but where are the key leverage points and barriers that we are overcoming by doing so. Okay, so the strategies should aggregate within a larger systemic effort that this change will lead to various
Can
pieces of the ecosystem to strengthen.
Can I suggest a concrete
Yes.
path forward? The groups that brainstormed this. I mean, I would
Yeah.
argue that the groups should clean up their documents. Right now, it's a brainstorm list.
Yep.
How we go in as our groups, clean
With
them
your
up,
own,
organize them, and so on and so forth, make them
Great.
make them workable. And then we have a separate group, my suggestion, and we can shoot it down, with more of a policy perspective to take these and integrate them. Not everybody.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
appoint a few
Yeah.
people who could work with these documents to actually put this policy layer on top of
Yeah.
it. Because not all of us have that.
Yeah.
And some people here have more knowledge about the policy environment and can make this more easily happen.
So Martin,
point.
just in terms of logistics, should we throw all of this into a table, into our master document? So we've got our manifesto, we can then create, and then put the table in, and bring all of those documents in, so that we want to have visibility as to wherever, because a lot of these cross over each other and they cross fertilize.
Yes, and we should
Yeah.
see which
And so I'm
ones-
thinking if we get it all into one document, we can see it. So we're gonna add a new section then to the manifesto at the tactic levels. You are each responsible then. We'll help you begin to do that, but that all needs to get populated and fleshed out. To your point, cleaned up. And then once we clean that up, then we'll go and synthesize them down
Okay.
into a set that we can go back, and we'll buy a little bit more time then we'll talk to the council and buy us a little time on this. Does that make sense?
For the groups who, kind of had notes bled into other topic areas, could we associate those
Yeah.
with their tables, and then, like, if folks had ideas for number 2, we could take a look
Yeah,
at
that'd
those
be great.
and bring them into our table, but maybe not like just paste them into your table as an example.
Well,
I wouldn't want to step
Filter
everywhere.
out, yeah.
Well, but again,
Maybe.
this is an open community process, right? So that's why it's really important for us to recognize that we're going to be able to contribute overall, all basically the 4 primary ones that we're focused on.
Yeah.
So if you do that cross-fertilization, maybe you should make a little note as you cut and paste, Put a square bracket 2 if you stole it from 2.
Well, and this is also where I think if we just do it simply like we did with a worksheet, which was, what's the idea? And notes, you can put your notes in there and say, and so you know what, so you can comment on that.
Oh, you could do, so this might be more complicated than needed, but we have 5 goals, right? 5 colors. If you copy one from yours into another one, you can see it in the color in this other one that it came from somewhere else. It's a simple procedural thing because this becomes very complicated very soon unless, but just having a bunch of notes there will probably, you need that too, but not enough.
Right.
So if we do this as a community process, we need to come up with, somebody has to come up with a simple process that makes it easy to identify.
And some kind of a legend.
Yes.
Okay. So we will take that on. We'll create the template. We'll take some initial population on that. Each of the groups with their leads will be responsible for cleaning it up by when? Let's put a commitment in here.
Monday.
Monday, 8 a.m. When do if we get this out first thing in the next week, can we have it all cleaned up by the end of next week?
Yes. I think that.
All clean? All good? Okay. And then Mark, we maybe about do an interim presentation?
Yeah, let's talk about an interim, what it might
So
look
maybe
like.
cleaned up by 5 p.m. on Thursday.
If we could do 5 p.m. on Thursday, that gives us a little bit more, because we're walking into our council meeting on Monday morning, so it'd be better to have that.
Friday morning.
Sorry, Friday morning. What did I say?
Friday morning.
Monday.
Oh, sorry, Friday morning.
So,
That would be helpful.
you want Thursday at noon, or do you want?
Thursday end of day.
End of day.
End of day. So
Which is business end of day, which is
Business,
5, not
Be-
software end of day, which is midnight.
Which is why I always use EOD, not
Software time.
CB, close of business.
And
That gives me 4 hours.
We may have the final document. Do you think it'll be during the legislative session?
We had put forward to by tax day to get this out to the broader groups. So the people who are at the STEM leadership, out to the STEM hubs, out to other professional networks of educators and out-of-school providers for comment, and industry practitioners. Yeah. So we want something pretty solid by then.
Work to do.
Yeah, we have a lot of work to do. Yes, there's a lot of work to do. Thank you very much, everybody. Really appreciate the expertise and perspectives and commitment to this.